All right, so I am here with Ben Meiselas, founder of the MeidasTouch Network, with his brothers, Brett and Jordy. And I'm really excited to interview you today, Ben. It has been so hard to even get this interview scheduled because you are nonstop covering all the crazy stuff that you know who is doing. And plus you have a family. And there's so much more you want to talk about probably than yourself, but I am curious. So I'm so grateful that you are sitting down with me because, as you know, I've known you for a while, but I've gotten to do a lot more on this network. And I know a lot of people know the origin story, but we just have to go back really quickly because I am so impressed about what you and your brothers have done in a few short years. I mean, you went from starting a podcast to interviewing the president and creating this huge Meidas Mighty community in just a few years. Some people could take a whole lifetime trying to get to that point. And so to me, how you got there is fascinating. So just really quickly, what really made you and your brothers want to start this when you did? And was there a moment when you knew this was going to work?
Well, Dina, that story even dates back to when you and I first met somewhere around 2011, 2012, in one of the first cases that I had as a trial lawyer. You remember the topic it was about. It was about the origin of podcasting at that time. And it was a business dispute. And my firm and your firm were on opposite sides. So we were representing people who were adverse to each other, and you and I were adverse to each other in that litigation. And through that litigation, though, you and I actually built a friendship that spanned more than a decade. But it's kind of funny that case involved what is a podcast. And you think about some of the issues that judge was grappling in the case. How do you project, the longevity of a podcast and things like that? So now here we are, 14 years later from that trial, one of the first trials that I was involved in. And here we've built out a network that includes podcasts, including podcasts that we see you on quite frequently. And so, it was clear to me in 2020 that there was a lot of issues and a lot of problems that needed to be called out. Over time, though, it was clear to me that the vehicle for doing that was by creating a media network. And really right around January 6, 2021, it kind of went from me and my brothers experimenting with different ways to try to engage audiences. And we were around, in that 2020 election, but I think we really found our footing in 2021 and said, what's really missing here is a pro-democracy media network that just says it like it is. And nobody was talking then about pro-democracy media networks. That wasn't even a thing that was in the lexicon, but we were saying it back in 2021 because we thought there needed to be this powerful voice that could represent the way people felt and give them the truth. And look, we knew we were playing catch up, and to some extent, we're still playing catch up right now when it comes to the Death Star that's been created in Fox, which was really created in 1970, in the 1970s, with a memo from Roger Ailes after Nixon resigned to come up with a right-wing propaganda network. Ailes ended up finding Murdoch in the early 90s. They built Fox generationally, and it is what it is today. So I wanted to create the antidote to that. I wanted to create the counter to that doesn't speak in propaganda, but that speaks in truth. And so we really embarked on that pro-democracy media in 2021. And then we built and built and built. And right now, as corporate media totally capitulated, to Trump, they visited Mar-a-Lago. They settled ridiculous cases with him that I think, in my opinion, they should never have settled. We're 100% independent. We don't have outside investors. We don't have shareholders telling me what to do. We have stakeholders, and the stakeholders are just the audience. It's the Meidas Mighty. And they watch the videos, they support and help grow the network. And that's how we ultimately build this thing. And just another quick point. My background is As I said from the outset, I was a lawyer. I'm still a lawyer, but I used to do trials and depositions, and I was Colin Kaepernick's lawyer, and I was traveling the country with Kaepernick in his case against the NFL and doing civil rights cases and big class actions and catastrophic injury cases. So I was doing, that type of work. Brett was an editor at the Ellen Show, and he was, and a bunch of other shows where he was doing rapid response type videos on YouTube. So Brett's one of the best technical editors. Brett's also one of those people who can like pick up instruments and play it, pick up anything technical and play it. And Jordy's the marketer. And Jordy's background was an award-winning marketing, ad guy who did a lot of campaigns for companies that you'd probably know of back in the day. So we put those skills together. We grew this pro-democracy media network. And, here we are today on kind of the front lines of reporting.
And you mentioned, you've been doing some personal articles in your Substack newsletter, or articles. And you mentioned Colin Kaepernick, and you say that it was because of his courage that you had the courage to do this network. You're going to need this courage even more now. So can you speak to that a little bit? When you started this, he was, as you say, it was, kind of the pandemic. He was getting reelected. You realized even then you need courage. It's about gotten like 10 times, 100 times worse than that now.
Yeah. If you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. And one of the things that I saw in Colin was someone who took a principled stand. He was willing to lose his career and hundreds of millions of dollars because he was peacefully protesting to bring attention to systemic injustices and the fact that there were all of these police shootings taking place and still taking place, killing unarmed Black and brown people. And he wanted to bring attention to that. And he did it in a respectful way, and they pushed him out. But for him, the principles and the values is what he led with. It wasn't leading with the money. And so to me, seeing the movement that Colin led then in the first Trump administration with just that act of resistance, a simple yet powerful act, that was always very inspiring to me. And then I always wanted to think about, well, how do you take that? And then how do you build on that to continue to be, reporting on key events every single day? And so the Meidas Mighty, this network, it's more than a network. It's a community of people. And I really credit Jordy as well for focusing on day one of really making sure where we were always focused on the community. And I think that's been the secret ingredient here to the growth, was that we've engaged this audience, engaged this community, and the community has then helped spread the message of this network, which to me means we're just doing our best every day to get the facts out in front of people and to get the truth out. And in a world of propaganda and corporate media right now, kissing the ring and trying to do everything they can for Trump, it's a tough tug of war between their billions of dollars and our people powered, what was my favorite book growing up? I think I'm a little train that could, we're pushing and we're doing our best every day. And it's not easy. But we're doing our best every day.
Yeah. I mean, before I did a lot with your channel, I had been on other community, doing legal analyst work for different networks. And I was stunned when I started doing work here on MeidasTouch, how nice your community is, how engaged your community is. I was like, wow, you can actually get good feedback in your comments. It was unprecedented, really. And the naming, Meidas Mighty, who came up with that name? Was that a Meidas Mighty person?
Definitely me. No, it was actually Jordy who came up with the name. And Jordy's got the advertising and marketing background. And so Meidas is a play on our last name, Meiselas, and also our mom's maiden name, Golden. And so Meidas was, has the turning things into gold. And our slogan was, what's really golden is truth. And truth is golden became the kind of initial slogan. And it was just focusing on the facts. And so Jordy was in charge of that branding. And through that, we've, we've built that, but we've built with core principles, core values, and what a big pivot was in the growth with the Meidas Mighty and the community too was, at some point I was less interested in, it's interesting as a political media network to say this, I was less interested in the politicians and their personalities, and I was more interested in the values and principles that I wanted to promote and that we wanted to promote. And I found that when you looked at the media, they talked about all these bad things all of the time, and it was so dark and doom and gloom. And so within our reporting, I thought it was important to just reinforce compassion, community, love, respecting each other, respecting each other's dignity. And of course, then, pro-democracy, and injecting that into our reporting. And then if politicians want to meet us with our values and principles, meet us, join us on the show and talk to us. But we're going to lead and not follow. And that's what the Meidas Mighty community does, lead.
I have a little story to show how you don't just talk the talk about your commitment to the community, like how much of it really is true. Is, a friend of mine, I didn't know that she was a Meidas Mighty person until I started doing this show. And she's a Teamster from Tennessee, a huge, watched you guys for a long time. And when I told her I was going to go see you because I was a guest at you're teaching at USC, which is a whole other thing, maybe hopefully we can get to, that you add on top of everything is you're actually teaching and helping these students. And she said, well, tell Ben I said hello. And so I said, oh, Ben, I explained to you that she's a Meidas Mighty, a huge fan, to say hello. And you're like, well, let's get her on the phone. And so we got her on the phone, and you had this amazing talk with her, which meant so much. And I thought, you know what, Ben, that is somebody who really, truly, you don't just say how much the community means to you, you really do. I was like, I told her afterwards, I said, do you know how hard it is for me to get Ben on the phone? You are a busy man. And, but that was, I just thought such, and also in your article that you wrote about the White House, you interviewed the president, and, after you said that after the interview was done, your first thought was, I hope the Meidas Mighty are proud of what you just did. Wow. That was and that's not just words to you, like I said, that story, you really do live that. If, people only see you in front of the camera, right? But behind the camera, you are that same person. And I've had a chance to see that. But so it just speaks how much really you are doing this for all of us, essentially. But I also just want to get to, that was your first thought after the interview. What was your thought before the interview? Did you have a moment of, I cannot believe I'm about to interview the president? Were you just in a Zen place? I mean, you've got to tell me what that was like, because most of us will never have an experience like that.
I didn't feel, oh my God, I'm about to meet the president. I was thinking to myself, I wanted to make sure that I was prepared to make that interview a historical record that it needed to be. And I knew I had to meet the moment of the interview. So my mind was more on, what decision should I make in the types of questions that I ask, so that this interview lives on in posterity to reflect a specific moment in American history, even if the interview is not, perceived or not perceived a certain way when it's released. It's a legacy interview that I had the honor of having one of the only people to get that interview. So for me, it was, I need to allow him to tell his story. I need to gently push back on issues that people want or deserve there to be pushed back on. But I wanted people to see in that half hour what he believed his legacy was. And I wanted to guide that conversation. And that's really where, where my mind's at, and I feel, and this isn't to be arrogant or it's for the community. I feel that the community that the Meidas Mighty built should have been selected to do that interview, because we've been collectively, with everybody watching here, on the front lines of doing this reporting, I didn't feel any sense of like imposter syndrome or anything. Like I felt that the Meidas Mighty should be doing that. And frankly, that we all should be doing more interviews like that, with a lot of other, politicians and notable public figures, with President Biden kind of leading the way on it. And my mind really went to, before, I just want to make sure that the Meidas Mighty, that the community, that people who are watching it, are going to feel that is what that's why I go to this network, and that's what I want to see in the future. And that's why, and this media network is here. I wanted it to be a statement like that looked like any interview I'm used to watching on a broadcast network. And those broadcast networks have now left us all and betrayed us. That looks like the interview that I would have seen a Walter Cronkite give. This was an interview that I would have seen a Dan Rathers give. This is an interview that I would have seen, some of the greats give. That's how I wanted people to feel about, leaving it. And then when I sat there, though, I wanted to do the interview with the utmost humility, and in terms of, I didn't want to make it about me. This wasn't about me. It wasn't about, me interrupting and being loud. It was about guiding a discussion in a respectful way, but firm way, so that history can judge that interview. That's how I saw it overall.
And I think you accomplished that. Like, I felt like you did the gentle pushback, but the pushback, and the questions were great. Really a fantastic interview. Maybe if it had gone before the election, he wouldn't have stepped aside, who knows, but it was really well done. You talked about on your puppy inauguration, which was in itself a great idea, about how you were a DJ at 5, DJ Ben. So does DJ Ben, is this where DJ Ben thought he was going to be at this age? And if,
no,
is it better?
No, I feel DJ Ben probably thought he was going to be a firefighter, a police officer. He probably thought he was going to be a conductor on a train, and then later on thought he was going to be a professional basketball player and a soccer player. So I don't know. The DJ Ben probably had a lot of different careers back then. Yeah. But even as a lawyer, I never would have expected this. I was meeting with an undergrad student who takes my my lecture, or takes my class, and she was asking me, well, during office hours, about the career, and I said, look, if you told me when I was going to law school at Georgetown in DC that I would end up in LA, I would tell you that. What in the world are you talking about? Then if you were to tell me I would be a plaintiff civil rights lawyer who was handling high profile cases in Kern County and Bakersfield and exposing corruption in Bakersfield, I would have told you, what in the world are you talking about? And then if you would have said I would have found an athlete named Colin Kaepernick, or he would have found me to be his lawyer, and I'd be in this big case with the NFL, and then all of a sudden I would be doing deals for Kaepernick and doing his media deals, I would tell you, what in the world are you talking about? Then if you said there would be a pandemic and I would basically leave the practice of law and become a journalist and start a media network and start making YouTube videos and building a Substack, I would tell you, what in the world? Well, I would say, but what I said to the undergrad student, though, is that there is this this thread. I didn't go into the DJ, but I'm sure I could connect that as well, which was, I think I like the DJing aspect because, I like people dancing and people happy. And, and what I tried to do in all of my work is to help people and fight for the underdog. In Bakersfield, whether they were Republicans or Democrats, or independents, or I didn't even know their political party, I represented families who someone in their life who they were close to, a family member, got killed by the police and they needed answers. And came to me to get them the answers. And then I represented all of those families, probably from lots of political parties, because I see their posts on Facebook and otherwise. So I know they're all from a lot of different political parties. But, we came together as a community there, and we did a lot of great work representing Kaepernick, who, when I started representing Colin, a lot of people didn't want to work with him at that time. That's when Trump said, get that SOB off the field. But I wanted to work with him because I believed that he stood on principle, that he stood on business. I mean, he was not going to, waver. I love that commitment. And then that's kind of been part of the backbone in building Meidas. So it all actually makes sense. But the route here was something that we probably couldn't predict.
Well, it's interesting because when we did our live with the verdict, with the only case that actually resulted in a conviction for Trump, I remember Colin texting you during that, because that was a big moment for him too, because of, what Trump put him through. But the timing of that verdict wasn't great for you personally. You had just gotten married pretty recently. And I think a lot of people in the community, I know Catherine, that was one of the things she said to me, was she admired how much of a hard worker you are. And it is true, like the amount of videos, you put out because you feel it's important for people to know what, especially these days, there's so much stuff happening. But this year for you, you got married, you had a baby, you were evacuated, and we got a chance to see you at all sorts of locations because you kept working through all of it, and that commitment is a commitment not only from you, but from your wife, Sochi, who I've had a pleasure of meeting too. She's so warm and welcoming. And your baby, it's a family, commitment really at that point. And you say in one of your Sunday morning coffee newsletters, you talked about how you are doing this for them. And you said, my wife is from Guadalajara. My baby is half Mexican. Trump's threats cut in a deeply personal way for me and my family. But it's not just my home. I think of the millions of families in America who Trump wants to screw over. I won't let him do that. And I imagine this is what drives you to get married and then keep, putting out the videos and the baby, but I mean, that level, you might be the busiest person in news right now, Ben, right? I mean, I don't see any of the broadcast news anchors doing that, every day, all day. That drive, the hardworking, the commitment to the community, to the news, what that means for you and your family, that family support, really.
I appreciate that. And, what I do, though, when I was a lawyer, towards the end, it started to feel like work. And when I would have to leave my family to go for a deposition in some other state, and then go to another deposition in another state, and then do another trial in another state, it to be blunt, that started to wear on me after a while. Being a part of this Meidas Mighty community and building this network together with everybody here, and you're included in that, and all of our other great hosts, it all feels like family. Obviously I have my family with my wife and my baby Jimena and Brett and Jordy, but the Meidas Mighty is a very inspirational, broader kind of family as well. And this community, I wake up every morning and I'm excited to be doing this reporting. I never go, oh my gosh, I got to do another video. I got to own another podcast, another show. I truly wish there were, my only regret is that I can't stop time. I wish there were more hours in the day to do more videos, because it never feels like work. I'll just look at the time sometime and I'll be like, oh man, that's the only feeling. I truly love doing this, even in these dark times, because, I feel it's necessary and needed right now. And I mean, the reality is that to some extent, I wish one day it's not. I wish one day it isn't as needed, because people's rights are protected, people's freedoms are protected, and it isn't. But I know that for this moment, we've been ready for it, and we're here for it, and it's very clear to me, the direction and the structure. And when you have these strong values and principles and this foundation that I think we built, more than, oh my God, are there going to be investors? Are there going to be the foundation of what we are? We know what we are. So when we communicate, it's easy, because this is who this Meidas Mighty community is. When I speak with international leaders in Canada or in Europe or elsewhere, we're the Meidas Mighty. We know what our values and principles are. And so, yes, it's a lot of hours in the day, but it never feels like work.
Well, I thank you for building it, because I'm grateful to have a voice here. And when you guys passed your 3 million subscribers, I was like, I feel like I'm on the ground floor, because this is, this is just the beginning. There's this deep dive of truth, let's put it, it's my another way of rephrasing truth is golden. Deep diving the truth is so necessary right now. And I want to have the last question be from a Meidas Mighty, because of your commitment to the Meidas Mighty. I thought having them have the last word is perfect. And this was somebody else who I grew up with, his best friend in Yonkers, New York. And he kind of found out that I was now on Meidas Mighty. And so his name is Matt. He's a union carpenter from California. And I asked him what he would want to ask you. And this is what he said. He said, of Trump's recent executive orders, which one does Ben consider to be the biggest threat to democracy? Or is he aware of or worried about anything coming down the pike that might be a bigger threat?
There's so many. I mean, whether or not you say the Trump's attempt at impounding all federal funds and having a essential freeze, which, shut down the Medicaid payment portals across all 50 states, among other necessary aid to people, that's probably the most cruel. But how do you rank that more cruel than some of the other, really cruel ones that he's doing as well, where he's, teeing up for other cruel action, executive orders to fire the watchdogs, inspectors generals at the various departments, who are the ones who try to protect against fraud and crimes at the things of these departments. I mean, my overall view of it, whether it's a specific order or not, and this is what I was trying to convey, before the election. That's why it's so important that we grow bigger to get this message out even more, is that whether you're from a red state or a blue state, I mean, Trump's policies are hurting you. And that's why they're trying to show you all these shiny objects. I call Trump a WMD, a weapon of mass distraction, because all of these culture wars and get really angry at this group or that group and these things, which, by the way, I take very seriously. I don't like bullying marginalized groups. We're always going to stand up for the trans community, and other marginalized communities here. But they want to divide people on culture war issues, so that they could then, enact these very just anti-everyone policies, except for the oligarchs and the billionaires. And so to me, I think even more than a specific executive order, seeing oligarchs on stage with a more prominent position than the cabinet, seeing the billionaires who bought this election for him, all acting weird too. I mean, Zuckerberg was looking at Bezos's wife's, chest, and she was wearing like a bra, the whole, and they were all making weird faces the whole time. The whole thing, to me, as I watched it, I was like, this is, all of it is just gross. And that symbolism was not just gross, but it was dangerous, because the message is that this oligarchy right here, the way Russia has an oligarchy, is here to further enrich them and to take away the rights from we the people. We want to fight for we the people here, on the MeidasTouch Network. So to the individual who asked you that question, to me, the impoundment executive order trying to take all of the federal funding away from legislatively directed places to Trump, but it's, to me, what they're saying. And they're saying billionaires are who their priority is, and the rest of us deserve, maybe will trickle down breadcrumbs to us. And we have to beg and say, please, 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 like you see in authoritarian regimes, please, please. That's what they want. They want to break us. We're not going to let that happen here, though. Until they rip this microphone away from me. Again, I got no billionaires who are directing this content. I've got no investors telling me I can say this or I don't say this. I'm not going anywhere, literally, until they take this microphone. And that's what they'll have to do. They'll have to literally rip it from my hands and take it away and forcibly make me stop speaking, because I'm not going anywhere. I'm not scared of these people. We're ready for this.
Well, thank you, Ben, because I know this is, it's important to you to not be talking like you would rather talk straight to the community with the breaking news, because there's so much breaking news. So I'm so glad we got a chance to talk about this, and maybe we revisit it, right? We have to see, like, in 6 months, a year, like what is there a pivot? Do we keep just getting louder? How does it go? So love to maybe talk to you about it again, but I'm so glad we got a chance to have this talk.
Dina, you're the best. I'm really grateful for all the work you put in at the MeidasTouch Network. I mean, every one of your videos I love so much. I love this idea to do this interview with me, although, I don't love talking about myself, but I said, if you want to do it, I'm in. And you've been such a valuable resource, and a wealth of knowledge, and just a cheerful, joyful, and incredibly intelligent person to have here on the network. And we so value all of our hosts, and to all the other just independent media creators out there. It's an important time where we stand together. We try to build up each other's platforms, and we try to spread joy. There's already a lot of darkness out there. We try to spread joy and the truth and the facts the best we can. Thanks, Tina.
Love it.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.